What's up, LinkedIn? Justin Minot here, and I am so excited for this interview. I get to announce the incredible Angela Hollowell doing big things out in the community. Angela, so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on this sunny Tuesday.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's gorgeous. So now, Angela, you are the founder and director of Ange H Studios.
Mhm.
You run the Honey and Hustle podcast, which I've had the privilege of being a guest, and I even have my own mug. Y'all, hey, you don't have this. Who on here has this? Come on now. This is a status symbol right here. So yeah, excited for all the work that you're doing. I want to hear your story. You know, we love to start with narrative and storytelling here, and I know you're a master storyteller. So, what has been the journey for you leading up to you starting Ange H Studios and the incredible work that you're doing throughout the community? What's that journey been like?
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me on to
Of
share my
course.
story a little bit, which is rare since I'm rarely on this side of the camera talking about that sort of thing.
Sure.
So I went to school at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And during my sophomore year, I changed my major to Spanish and I went on my first study abroad trip to Spain. I did the Camino de Santiago. Experience of a lifetime. I love that I didn't just go to study abroad to sit in a classroom, that I went to experience the culture and was forced to use the language on a daily basis because it just helped me grow as a student, as a person, and I guess just as a global citizen, if you will. But I didn't have a camera at that time. I took my smartphone and it factory reset itself after I got back from that trip. So I have no evidence that I ever went to Spain. And I said, you know what? I never want that to happen again. So I worked the entire summer, saved up just enough for a camera, and it's been with me ever since.
Wow.
So of course, it started as a way just to document my travels, document what I was doing in life, and then a couple friends around graduation time were like, "Hey, can you take pictures of me? Hey, can you do this for graduation?" And a friend was like, "Hey, like, listen, this many people are asking. You need to start putting this show on the road and getting paid." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not really a salesperson. I don't really know how to sell services or whatever."
Sure.
But I tried it. I had a friend that was a DJ that was like, "Hey, I got this couple who's getting married and they're looking for somebody who's kind of like you, who's not really in it for the money, but just in it because they love it." Turns out
Hmm.
they were the director and cinematographer for the film Woodlawn, which is yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like, they got plenty of photographers they could have called on, but
Wow.
for whatever reason, they got me, who's never shot a wedding. So I don't know
Wow.
if that was my luck or theirs, but I got that was kind of my first dip into it, and that was when NJ Studio was born in September of 2016. And we've been kind of growing strong ever since, and we've grown to now be a digital media production company doing filmmaking, podcasting, social media strategy and consulting, and things like that. So.
Mm. I love that journey. So, at what point did you, even before shooting this wedding, at what point did you start to realize, okay, I got a camera for my own enjoyment, but I actually enjoy the production side and doing this for other people? What was that transition like for you? How did you discover that that was a passion?
If we're being honest, I was like, "Yo, this is an expensive hobby. I need to,
Right.
I need to offset the cost of this somehow because I want to grow and I want to invest in myself, but doing it for free isn't going to allow me to do that." So there was that, and then just having fun with friends. I think it helps when you start off working with people that you're super comfortable with and super people that are have confidence in you, trust you, and
Mm.
and want to create something with you. So that was kind of the start of like, okay, I can make this soft transition to doing this for money on occasion. And then, yeah.
Right. Now, I think a lot of the audience here can relate to this idea. Okay, you have a passion, or you have something that you've started doing that was maybe a hobby, and you actually want to start building it more as a business, and you're making some of those strides. You're maybe, further along on the journey or not so far along on that journey. Give us
Mhm.
a little bit more of like the practical game of how you built from this to this to this to this to now running a full production company and
Yeah.
working on some major projects and all of these things, because I think this is something super relatable for almost any industry, especially in the creative and service-based industry. That's going to be super practical for people. So break
Yeah.
that down a little bit for us. Give us some game.
Y'all want the keys to the kingdom. All right.
Right? That's what we're here for.
We can do that. We can do that. So for me, like you said, going back to being a creator, going back to really understanding that, okay, I'm a service provider now. It And I know this was a hard transition for me mentally, and maybe it is for some other people, but it's less about the product you create and more about the experience, right? So from the
Okay.
moment a person finds you on social media, what messaging are they receiving? What are they seeing with that messaging? What is it like for them to book with you and reach out to you and talk with you about your
Mhm.
services and what they may need? What is it like when you work with them? What is it like when you follow up with them and deliver a product and that service and keep that relationship going?
Yeah.
How are you fostering maybe getting a review from them? How are you fostering, getting a referral from them? So that was some things I had to think about. So it was less about showing up and doing a good photo shoot, but it was like everything in between, right? So
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
understanding that business is a process and not just an event. So that was the
That's
first
so
one,
good.
of
That's
course,
so
the
good. I need
mindset
everybody in the back to hear that.
shift.
No, that's so good.
Yeah, so that was kind of the first shift. Is like, okay, I need to start thinking about the whole process that I'm giving people. That's
Right.
number one. Number two is like, how can I make that consistent, right? So it shouldn't matter whether I know you or not, whether you're a referral, whether you come from me from Instagram and Facebook, which is what I kind of started on in
Yep.
terms of marketing myself. Those were a couple of things. The other thing was like, okay, I need to get comfortable in diversifying my marketing streams and really understanding how I can create more channels of organic outbound marketing
Yeah.
they can get people in. Facebook and Instagram are cool, but at some point, like, I didn't have my face on my website. I didn't have good SEO attached to my website. So getting organic website traffic was something that I worked on.
Yeah.
Learning how to market myself in person. So when people saw me out in person, they're like, oh, what do you do? Oh, you take photos? You know what I mean? Like having those type of
Right.
conversations were really hard for me at first.
Right.
I got out of that once I got to the Triangle because I had went to so many networking events. I learned very
Sure.
quickly how to like pare that down and work with that messaging in
Mhm.
person. So that was really important. And then just really generating, I wouldn't say a funnel, but just a way that produce the type of people that I wanted. And not just for business, but also for other things. So once you get the processes down, it's like, okay, what other assets does my business need?
Yeah.
Right? What other people in my life do I need that can help me advance and grow and develop as a business owner?
Right.
So other types of people, not just clients, but mentors, sponsors, people across the aisle who are also photographers. Like, what are they doing? What's working for them? What's not working for them? How can we share with each other and grow together? What are some ways that other people in my industry are collaborating together? So for weddings at the time, when I was doing that very heavily, it was, styled shoots, it was,
Yeah.
networking events, it was things like that. So curating these kind of like think pieces, idea pieces that couples could envision themselves in. Uh,
Mm.
so just little things like that, like figuring out how one you can network it across, two how you can diversify your marketing streams organically, especially when you don't
Yeah.
have a lot of money, because I didn't have a lot of money starting out.
Sure.
And then three, how you can continue to reiterate and grow that process and make that business process super seamless, super nice, and that really sells for you.
That is brilliant. There is so much game. I feel like everyone needs to rewatch this piece of the interview. There's just so much game in there, especially for people that are starting a service-based business and wanting to grow that. I think that's incredible, and especially the piece about hitting the client experience. I think that's something that is overlooked a lot of times. Is really fleshing out the full client experience and what that feels like, all the way through referrals, because your business, I'm sure, has grown a lot through word of mouth and people, tell me about that process, the process of actually getting the referrals coming in. How was that?
Yeah. So first of all, hey Kenya, how are you?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
um, so for me, I would say referrals and word of mouth. One, obviously, like social media is great,
yeah,
but it's only going to take you so far. I think there has to be a way. One, also this kind of like reframe my thinking around how I use social media and how I actually connect with social media and what that means is like really thinking about okay, I've talked to a person maybe in the comment section or something like that. But how do I get to the DMs? How do I get them to the email? How do I get them to a virtual meeting or an in-person
mm,
meeting, whenever that's a thing? So really continuing to like I want to say nurture relationships. That sounds so manipulative, but really like be intentional with how you connect with people.
right,
That was one thing. So if I'm starting on social media, this isn't going to stay on social media, right? So
correct,
having a way to get them off of that platform, number one. Number two is with networking events. One thing I learned that was standard for me, but I learned not so much for everybody else. I would go to a networking event, get on my business cards that I gathered, and I would follow up with them the next morning. I would have like
right,
a little script that I had. Nobody follows up. If you followed up, you're already in like the top 10% of people that they're gonna
Come
remember.
on, that's right.
You know what I'm saying? And be
Wow.
intentional, have like a way to connect with them outside of the email. Like, hey, we met here. You know, I want to learn more about you. Do you have time for maybe a coffee talk or whatever that we can just learn more
Right.
about each other, and like how can we look out for people that would be good referrals for each other? So that was one way, and just like developing
Which is
relationships like
such a
that.
great, authentic way to
Yeah.
build your business. Like when you just come like, hey, I'm genuinely interested in what you're doing, not just, hey, here's my service.
Yeah.
Come on, this is like humaning 101. I think this is beautiful. Keep it going.
Yeah, so that was one way I did it. And then like business cards are cool. I don't ever see myself passing out another business card probably. I know that sounds weird, but I just think like in today's time, it's like it's so easy to get wrapped up in like, oh, here's my website, go check out my website, versus like I feel like more personal connections made through the email.
Connection.
So if you
Yes.
and like making those warm introductions too. So not just saying like, here's this person. It's like, no, I want to introduce you guys. I want to tell them about you, tell them about who you are and what you offer, and see how you can kind of tee that up as well. And again, like I said, like not all referrals and connections and partners and people that you meet are going to be for monetary gain. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you're looking for an accountant, you're looking for a bookkeeper, you're looking for, a business lawyer, whatever your needs may be, like those needs, that can't be quantified with money strictly. Or you want somebody to come to your event, like maybe you're hosting your own event and you want some people to come out and promote that on social media. Like those are ways that you can really just serve your audience and your tribe and your crew of people who are also just looking to help you succeed. So
I love the focus on adding value no matter what. And I feel like everyone needs to hear this, because people who build their business this way, the way you're talking about, long term always win. Short term, it might not feel like you're getting some of the monetary gains, right? Because you're just out there making all these connections and building your network and all this. You might not see the quote monetary gains. It might not hit your bank account. But in terms of what you are investing in the lives of people and the value that you're adding, value always comes back, whether it's in the form of money, opportunities, resources, whatever it is. Like value always comes back. You cannot outgive life. And so I just love the way that you've built this business over time. So what is some of the stuff you're working on right now? Like what are the things you're most excited about? Because I want people to get a sense of where you've built from to what you've built to, which I think is an incredible business that you're running. So give us a sense of the types of things you're most excited about for right now.
Yeah, so we've already given one sneak peek. We are filming for season 3 of Honey and Hustle. I'm super excited about that. We got a whole production situation going on. We're going back to that client experience from the guest to the audience. They get a coffee mug if they're a guest on the show. The audience is going to get gym after gym after gym. They're going to get grade A production, and they're going to get access to some of the resources that I use and love on a regular basis throughout my business. So super excited for that. One of the things that a previous guest, who I will not mention because you're just going to have to watch and see who said this, but he was like, we always come to forks in the road throughout life as it relates to the work that we do. So it's like either I can have a job or I can have a career. I can have a career or I can have a brand. And I know brand is not, it's about as dirty of a word as content creator right now for maybe creators out there who are watching this. But I truly believe that maybe not even a personal brand, but a creative platform is kind of where I'm at now. So it's great that I have these services that I do with AJ Studio. It's great that I have the podcast, but I want to use that to really grow a platform for people to have access to access. I just put access resources together, but to have access to resources that just can help them. So the podcast is one. Is part of my YouTube channel, which also has free resources for people if they want to check that out. It's just my name, Angela Hollowell. And then I also have a newsletter that I'm trying to grow for creators and creative entrepreneurs that I curate resources on social media, video tips that I may have, and just other resources that apply to their business and help them. So that's kind of where I'm growing right now. I'm super excited to see where that continues to build and thrive this year. So
I love that. Now, you are executing on a lot of the things that you also help people do, which I love. Like you're actually eating your own cooking, which is great. I want to hear specifically, I think there are a lot of people who could benefit from the podcast, from the audio style content creation. Can you talk about practically for someone who may not be like you are a content creator by trade, like you're actually making the things with the video camera, da 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 da. But this is for so many more people. Break
Right.
down the practical uses of how you've used a podcast to reach a wider audience, how that's actually impacted your business, and how someone who maybe in, another service provider or selling a product might be able to benefit from putting that type of content out.
Right. So the podcast really, for me, was just kind of a natural extension of who I am as like a visual storyteller.
Yeah.
It just felt very natural for me to be the conduit for other people's stories as entrepreneurs, as founders, as creators, and things like that. And I think really when I started the podcast in March 2020, we were right. I was kind of early on the cusp of people, making storytelling synonymous with marketing, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
now everybody wants a marketing coordinator with a storytelling focus. Now that's
Uh-huh.
like the standard, right?
Right, right.
Storytelling is synonymous with that, but it wasn't at the time. So I kind of got in early on that cusp or on that wave of now what people consider to be marketing that truly works in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a long game. But if you start building those bricks now, you can always grow later, and that's what I told myself with the podcast. So if you look at the beginning, trash, absolutely terrible. But now, super great quality, and that's what it's about. But people still understand that they understand the premise of what Honey and Hustle is and what it has always been, which
Yeah.
is a way for you to get one-on-one conversations with story, like almost like you're in the room with us, drinking a beer, at a happy hour, and actually getting a real conversation with someone who's just talking
Mm.
freely about their story and their experience and things that may be able to help you. And so when you are a small business owner, you're a creator, you're an entrepreneur, maybe even a nonprofit founder, and you're like, okay, I want to connect with my community. I want
Yeah.
to find my community. Interviews and storytelling videos and audio files are a great way to do that. And there are a lot of different ways, depending
Sure.
on how much a budget you have. Again, if you're starting out, marketing probably isn't getting 100% of your money.
Yeah.
You're probably going into investing in other areas of your business that you need.
Yeah.
Not to say that you don't need marketing, but in a time where social media is free, you can easily
Right.
do it for free if you put in the time. And
Correct.
so we're seeing things like audio, which is digestible audio drop in like Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, long form audio like podcasts, video storytelling like a video podcast or YouTube channel where you're creating your own original content.
Mm-hmm.
And those come at different levels, and it can get expensive depending on what you want. But in terms of just starting out small, I mean, it's too easy to start a Clubhouse room. It's too easy to start a Twitter space or even join one that's already happening and speak in there and have conversations with people,
Yes.
and just kind of create those connections that way organically. I think that's just a great way to start in terms of really getting audio content. A lot of times, Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse rooms, they're recorded, so you can download the audio after it's done. You can repurpose that content any way you like.
Mm.
It's not only are you getting it from that live experience of talking with people who are in your industry, but you're also, okay, I had this conversation with this person. This is a gem that we talked about. Put it on your social media and maybe a little video, a little caption video with the audio. Great way to get it out there. Great way to
Yeah.
start very quickly, and very smartly. I think, as right now we're seeing this like uptick in people interested in audio drop in,
Yeah.
and in short form video content. So
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. Some of the benefit I've seen too is it positions you as, a thought expert or a thought leader. That's the word I'm looking for. It positions you as a thought leader by having these other really brilliant people who you're interviewing. If you do choose to do interview style podcasting or things like that, is you get to interview these brilliant people. I learn every single time I'm on an interview, but it positions you as a thought leader, as someone who cares, who's at the center of some of the activity that's going on. So I think, long term, it's just a brilliant way if you care about connectivity, if you
right,
care about really building a community around the work that you're doing and connecting other people to other people. And then practically, you have reach to another person's audience as well by interviewing somebody on whatever show. Like all the people that care about Angela are going to be tuning into this. And so I get to connect with them by
right.
connecting with you. And I think that's how it grows over time. So super practical, super brilliant. I do want to talk specifically about social media strategy because this is something that you are great at. and something that business owners struggle with in terms of like frequency of content, and it can feel super overwhelming trying to be on all these platforms. Like, break it down for us. You're a small business, right?
Mhm.
You're an entrepreneur, maybe solopreneur with a, maybe a small team
Yeah.
around you. How in the world do you get your message out there? We talked about podcasting as one format, or audio as one format, but let's break down like just basic social media. How does that work?
Yeah, I would say one thing that helped me when I first started out was not giving myself a lot of options. I stuck with Facebook and Instagram until Facebook and Instagram didn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, like, even now, even if Facebook and Instagram aren't your way per se,
Yeah.
like, find out one, what social media platforms you're comfortable on, and two, what social media platforms your audience is on, and try to meet in the middle. Get one or two
Mm-hmm.
that you can actively learn on and engage on and have conversations on, and stick with it daily.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if anybody wants to know, oh, the best time of day, doesn't matter. Get on there every day.
Right. Be
Get
on.
on. Get on. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like you're getting too much in the weeds, honestly. I
Right.
mean,
Well, most of the time when people ask those types of questions, it's really just convenient procrastination, right?
yeah.
Right. Where it's like, yeah, but the best time of the day, I want to make sure that my content, no, get it
Yeah.
out there.
And honestly, there's no excuse in terms of that either, because you can schedule content on just about any platform at this time. So
Sure.
it's just kind of like it's really no excuse. You can batch edit, you can bulk create, which is also something people don't talk about as much. Like, if you
Mm.
don't have a lot of time, set aside 1 day or 1 hour a week, make a bunch of content for whatever platform you're on, schedule it, hit it again next week. Like,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I think one of the best ways that I would say in terms of being consistent on any platform is to, decrease the barriers for you to be active, right?
Mm.
If your whole thing is, well, for me to make a YouTube video, I got to set up a light, I got to set up audio, I got to set up my camera. Okay, set it up one time, leave it there, come back, wait, wash, rinse, repeat. Why are you putting in so many barriers for yourself to just get started? You know what I
Mm.
mean? And stay consistent once you get started. Because starting is also
Mhm.
the hardest part for a lot of people. It's just like, "Ah, I don't know where to start. I don't know the best times of day. I don't know if it's going to get engagement." Well, you're never going to know if you don't start.
Right.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a client last week, and we had a breakthrough on this idea of content creation and just the consistency around it and platforms. And they're like, I just hate this platform, or I don't like this thing. The shift that I thought was helpful, and I want to share with the audience here, is when you get more focused on your audience and less focused on you, you care a lot less about where the content actually is. Like, you can actually become pretty, what you call it, platform agnostic, in the sense that you don't really care what the platform is. It's like, where are the people that I
Mhm.
want to connect with? Like, I know that I have a message that they need, or that somebody on that platform needs to hear. And so
Mhm.
now it's like, do I want to be a TikToker? No, not necessarily. But I will take my reels from Instagram and I will put them on TikTok every once in a while, because it's where the people are. Like, I am going to the people. It's not about the platform itself, whether or not I like the platform. I don't
Right.
care about the platform. I care about the people. And when you care about the people, you go to them,
Yeah.
right? Whether that's, okay, people, audio, people, whatever, like a ton of different ways that you can reach them, but it's less and less and less about the platform. What's your experience been like with that? Like, with, like, okay, getting your eyes off of you and getting your eyes onto the people you're really trying to serve.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I would say you find your people in the most unlikely of places.
Mm.
So one thing I did, so last year was my first full calendar year being people by people. That's funny. But,
Right.
I mean,
Well, yeah, we got to clarify. We're
yeah,
not. People don't buy people
but they buy
legally
from people.
in
You know what I
America.
mean?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yes, big thanks, Kenya.
yeah,
And everyone needs to go follow Kenya too. Master communicator, doing brilliant work. Kenya's been on the show in the past, which, go find that interview too. It's just gold.
yeah. She's awesome. But I mean, I think it also speaks to, even now, and I'll tie this into my answer. It's like, now we're in a time where you kind of can't be a faceless brand.
Mm.
Maybe that works back in the day, but now that Jeff Bezos is synonymous with Amazon, now that Elon Musk is synonymous with Tesla, and they're your two
Right.
biggest
Right.
examples of business owners right now, I think that is the expectation. The expectation is to build in public. The expectation is for you to really be active in owning your company and its
Mm.
wins and its successes, and the things that you're trying to do with it to meet the needs of your clients and
Right.
customers, and the people that you work with in general, so your employees as well.
Yeah.
And so in social media, I think one, when it comes to being platform agnostic and really focusing on your audience and where are the people that care about those type of stories, right?
Hmm.
Elon Musk knows that it's on Twitter. You
Yeah.
Gary Vee knows that he can easily go viral on LinkedIn. That's why he's
Hmm.
still on there, even though he's a crude, unpolished person. But he knows he can get on there. He can say what he wants, and people are gonna really respect that because
Yeah.
they understand that grind and that dedication from him,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I would say even more so than places like Twitter, for example. I think
Yeah.
Twitter is kind of like he has to do a lot more work to have conversations on Twitter than he does on LinkedIn.
Right.
And so for that, I would say like, I again, like I started on Facebook and Instagram, but as my business matured and as I matured and as I kind of got tired of being on Instagram because the platform just wasn't really putting me in front of my audience in the way that I would have liked, I
Hmm.
really started to say, okay, well, let me just try out other things. I have other things that I can say now other than just photos and other than just videos, right? I
Right.
have, things that I can talk about and speak to. And so I tried out just about every platform. I tried out LinkedIn, TikTok, and Twitter newly for a year in YouTube. And I
Hmm.
saw, excuse me, I don't know, I'm hoarse, but I saw that, things were going really well on YouTube when I was actually able to be consistent. Things were going really well on Twitter when I was showing up every day. I did the Tweet 100 challenge, which I'm still doing, which is, tweeting daily for 100 days. I
Okay.
mean, just the engagement that I saw from that and still see from that, it's like, yo, my people are on here. Like,
Wow.
yeah, my people are here.
Yeah.
With the podcast, being at a business podcast, it makes sense for me to be on LinkedIn. Like, my people are here. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Especially when you have visual content that goes along with it. Like,
Yeah.
if you show up on a regular basis, it's like you can find your people anywhere. And I think that's just what I want to say to people. Like, don't be afraid to move to other platforms once you maybe feel like you've peaked on one platform
Sure.
and start fresh. Because it's like, yeah, you may be starting fresh, but you're starting fresh with a group of people who know you, who love you, who want to be there, right?
Yes.
Versus people that you just accumulated over time because maybe you started on a platform where you had a lot of friends and family you were connected to, and they were amplifying your work and getting you in front of their audiences and things like that. So I think there's no fear in starting over. There's no fear in trying something new. You don't have to shy away from Clubhouse and TikTok just because there's a new thing and you think they're trendy and you don't
Right.
want to be trendy and you want to be evergreen. Like you can still do that on those new
Sure.
platforms, but just be honest about why you're using them. You know what I mean? And where you're seeing your results coming from as you're being consistent as you can on these platforms. So
Oh, that's huge. That
yeah.
is huge, 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 huge. So for a small business that's just starting out and trying to find their voice, right? You mentioned storytelling as
Mhm.
the main way to connect. I think storytelling is as old as dirt, right? It's like that is one of the things that make us most human is
Yeah.
our connection to narrative. Um, Talk about practically what does that look like to transition from just creating random things to really telling a story and not in a way where you feel like you have to have your whole whatever story plan built out. I'm talking about just real basic human storytelling and how businesses can use that to actually connect with
Yeah.
real people that they care about.
Right, right. So I want to go back to this thing about being a personal brand and creating or making a creative platform. In either case, you're going to have to share some parts of your story, right?
Mhm.
And when we talk about, my story to how I got into photography and how I started AJ Studio, that's cool for a platform like this. If I was tweeting about that, nobody cares. That doesn't add value to people. What they care
Mhm.
about is the nitty gritty. It's like, okay, how'd you turn it from a hobby to a business? How'd you go from a
Right.
business to being full time? Like, what are the steps that you took? And
Mhm.
so I think part of what can
Mhm.
demystify storytelling for people who are uncomfortable or unused to sharing their story is building in frameworks for how you share your story. So imagine if you're sitting down trying to think of tweets, trying to think of things to post about yourself. Um, Imagine if you're sitting across from Justin and he's asking you these questions. If he's asking you, you've been in business for a year, what have you learned?
Right.
What's different from a year from now in your business and in your life?
Mm.
What are some things in your life that you've done to really make yourself a better business owner? Because I think,
Mhm.
we people love to talk about mental health mindsets that they have, mindset shifts, and just building in and following other people's different storytelling frameworks that work really well.
Mm.
People often ask me to give video feedback or things like that. And what I will do a lot of times is reference certain frameworks. It's like, hey, here's how to tee your story up to have the most impact, right?
Right.
And so think about that with your stories as well. It's like, how can I have the most impact, right? How can I tell a story that resonates with people, even though it may not be unique to them? Most, maybe let's say, you started a business and your grandfather died. A lot of people may not be able to relate to that, but they can relate to the feelings that you have and how you work to come through that and take that and use that in their own life. And so think about the value that it provides, how you're teeing up stories for impact, because if you bury the lead halfway through, nobody's probably going to get to it.
Right.
So, just building in intrigue, building in hooks, and honestly understanding and knowing that there is something valuable about the stories that you have to tell.
Yeah.
So I think that is also like a big mindset shift for me. Like, no, I have things that people want to hear about, and people
Right.
maybe
Well, and
want.
ultimately, like Kenya was saying, or try to say, is that people want to connect with people. And that is over time what
Yeah.
leads to some of the transactions, if you will, even though that's not the point,
Mm-hmm.
that people connect with humans. And so even that story about, okay, you start a business and your grandfather dies, the relatability is, oh, wow, this person's human,
Yeah.
and that for me, human to human, is really what I want to know. You are not just some business owner after my money. You're a human with real feelings, real thoughts, real vulnerabilities, real struggles,
Mm-hmm.
all the things. And I think that is brilliant. And that's how you build it well over time. What's
Yeah.
something that you wish you knew a year ago in your business, right? So we can go way back, but I'm just talking about like practically. I just love how you were saying that. What about 1 year ago?
Yeah.
You've made some big strides in a year,
Right.
in your work and in your business, right? So what's something you wish you knew a year ago?
Um. Really, that the best way for me to be productive is to set boundaries and stick to them. Right. I
Break
think
it down. Tell me more.
I will. I will. So for me, I was coming fresh off of a contract in February of 2021. And I was like, I need to, this is kind of my slow season. I want to take a step back. And I was, again, like pushing full steam ahead on season 2 of the podcast. So I think I did like 8 episodes that month. I pushed out 8 episodes. I was doing like 2 a week. What
Wow.
kind of drugs was I on? I have no idea. But, I was super like, okay, I need to do my own thing for a while.
Yeah.
I need to really, sit back and evaluate, because it had been about 6, 7 months since I'd been full time at that point. And I was like, okay, like I want to go into another level of business where I'm working on bigger projects. Contracts are great. Still, we'll do a contract. I'm on a contract right now with a nonprofit. But it's like, okay, I also needed to find like what it is that I want at the end of the day, and
Mm.
how the people that I work with and the clients that I work with fit into that vision that I have for myself. And that means saying no to a lot of things that are not for you,
Wow. Yeah.
regardless of the money, regardless
Yeah.
of that. And because I mean, there are going to be a lot of opportunities that come your way. When you're showing up every day, when you're showing up in your most authentic self, people are going to gravitate to that.
Of
For whatever
course.
reason or another, people are going to gravitate to that. They're going to see themselves in your story. They're going to see themselves in your work. And
Yeah.
that's great. That's what you want. That's what I want, at least. I want
Mhm.
people to feel that the type of storytelling that I do is inclusive, and that they can see themselves in it. That's always
Yeah.
the best compliment to me. But that's also, I think, what also made it hard to learn how to say no.
Mm.
But I'm glad that, that was probably one of my biggest lessons. It's like, you're going to have to say no a lot, know a lot, and not just the big things, the small things. You're gonna have to say no to some meetings that can
Right.
wait. You're
Right.
gonna have to be say no to some things that may take longer times to achieve, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be right now. So just saying no. I know that sounds so simple because people are like, "Oh yeah, I said no to
No, that's so
Starbucks
good.
this morning," but like, it's more than that. It's more than that.
No, I think we don't say no often enough as entrepreneurs, especially when you're in that kind of startup, you're feeling like you're in grind mode or whatever, and you want to say yes to all the projects because you're feeling this, okay, I want to, I want the dollars, I want to make the money, I want to, grow my business, trying to grow my
Yeah.
brand. You think you need to say yes to everything. And so I think saying no is actually an act of abundance. It's an act of trust in what you're on the planet to do. Because to me, if it doesn't align, then you're just, selling yourself essentially to
Yeah.
do whatever it is that you're doing, because it's not aligned work. Doesn't mean that everything is 100% aligned, but really you should be doing work that, like, no, this is why I'm on the planet. This is, who I want to be and the type of work that I want to show up and do. So I think saying
Yeah.
no is super practical. So I want to hear, like, what is the what is the type of work for you, just so that people can get an understanding of how you measure projects? What is the type of work for you that aligns, that you're like, yep, this is the bullseye for me. This is the type of stuff that I'm on the planet to do.
Yeah, so I would say like right now I've really been honing in on this outdoor storytelling type work through
Hmm.
photography and filmmaking. So for those that don't know, I'm a contractor with East Coast Greenway Alliance, which is an outdoor nonprofit focused on advocating for safe access to trails and greenways and separated bike lanes
Yeah.
along the East Coast. And then I've also worked with the National Farm Worker Ministry. I was on a long-term contract with them working on some farm worker movement, food justice type stuff.
Wow.
And I'm also a member with E2, which is Environmental Entrepreneurs, and Women in Climate Tech. So more
Mm.
broadly, environmental justice projects. But what I've learned is that a lot of environmental justice work doesn't talk. Like, you know, you have your food
Yes.
justice, food sovereignty over here, you have your outdoor recreation, outdoor access over here, and then you have your like sustainability, climate change, you know, stuff over here, but they
Right.
don't really talk to each other, which I guess is fine. But I talk to them, so that is kind of the work that I focus on in that sense. So yeah.
Mm. Connective storytelling. I love that. What about the environmental work really resonates for you? Like, what drew you to that type of work?
I don't know. I think I just got so I got my master's in peace and human rights.
Hmm.
And the reason that sparked me wanting to get my master's in that particularly was I had a class on cancer health disparities.
Hmm.
And the first question they asked us when we got in the room on the first day class was they showed us this research paper. And at the end, the conclusion was Black women and white women get cancer at the same exact rate. Yet Black women have a twice as much mortality rate than
Hmm.
white women once they contract. It's like you get at the same rate. Why are Black women dying twice
Wow.
as much from white women from this same disease? And
Wow.
nobody in the room can answer that question, right? And so one thing I learned very quickly was this essence of cofactors and how all of these things impact our health, impact our well-being, and
Mm.
it's very rarely one thing acting in concert that causes another thing,
Sure.
right? Going back to just systemically how we interact with our environment as people, which is
Yeah.
very understanding that a lot of people just haven't made that connection with, right? They think one thing is caused by this other thing, when in reality it's a system of things that interact, that make our environment, make us who we are. And
Sure.
so one thing that we also studied was environmental justice. So like how your environment impacts your health outcomes
Mm.
from culturally to, you know, the actual air to, you know, your access to clean water, clean air, those things.
Yeah.
So I just really got interested in that. And I mean, I studied it from a lot of different perspectives, from refugee health, from environmental health in terms of air quality, air pollution, access to green spaces, studied it from disaster plans, so how disasters can affect medical preparedness in your environment and your access to resources and things like that. So I just really got deep into that in my master's degree and then saw some opportunities as I was going full time and working in that space and economic and racial justice, started kind of connecting those dots and really like, okay, I really like being in this outdoor space. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, now what I want people to hear is, like, you have driven your career and you now have more opportunities to drive your business towards the things that, make you come alive from a passion
yeah,
standpoint. That, like, you have this tool, you have this skill set, you have these services, and now you get to really marry that with causes that you really care about. And I think over time, especially if you're in a service-based business, you have that opportunity to really get closer and closer to, like, that sweet spot and that niche and that intersection for you. So I wanted to make sure people heard that part of your story. All
yeah.
right, what is one thing that you want to leave everybody here with? Like, super practical, something, a next step that somebody can start doing today to really move their brand forward, to move their business forward using storytelling and reaching people where they're at.
Yeah. My first step would be honestly, first of all, get outside today. If you have the time, take a
Mm.
nice walk outside. It doesn't have to be long, 20, 30 minutes if you don't have a lot of time, an hour if you do have a little bit more time. One, I think your best ideas come when you're not thinking about them. And it's very
Mm.
easy to get overwhelmed about what we just talked about because we talked about a lot,
Yeah.
right? So I would say just go on a walk, maybe have your phone, maybe have a notepad, just some way you can take notes and just kind of see what organically comes to mind. and write that you can reflect on what we talked about and see what you want to implement in your own journey right now today in terms of social media. Maybe something you want to try. Maybe you want to try making your first reel. Maybe you want to try jumping into a Twitter space today or a Clubhouse room. Maybe you want to try making a video of yourself and posting it, talking about maybe what you've learned over the past year as a business owner and as a creator. Those would just be my things. Just do one small thing today. Come up with one idea based on what we talked about that you can do to share your story on a social media platform of your choosing, and get some time outside today. So
that's so good. That's so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to everybody here on LinkedIn who's tuned in. You could have been anywhere, and like I always say, time is the most valuable thing we have, and you've chosen to be with us here today. Thank you, thank you, Angela. You are brilliant, and I'm so excited that we got this time together. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with our community, and I look forward to seeing all the crazy things that you end up doing, because you're on a track to major impact, and I'm glad to know you at this stage. I really am.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and same here.
All right, thanks. Bye for now.